What's up? What's going on? Welcome back to another live stream. I appreciate everybody for being here, and we've got some cool things to talk about today. Make sure, again, before you leave the bar today, you pay your bar tabs. That is hitting the like button, and that is hitting the subscribe button if you have not already. And remember that when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I will be giving away 10,000 Caspa to one lucky winner. Sounds like volume's okay. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're coming up on 6,000, and I would love to get to 10,000 during this bull cycle before the end of the year. And that way, we can give out that 10,000 Caspa when it's at its peak, and you guys can, do whatever you want with it, right? Sell it for profit or hold on to it. It'll be your decision at that point. So make sure, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, pay your bar tabs. So let me know how you guys are feeling today, what you're drinking today, and what the overall mood of the crypto space is, Before we get started, though, have you guys ever tried, want to ask, have you guys ever tried, like, mushroom extract? Because I bought some reishi mushroom extract, and it's supposed to be for calming, right? It calms your nerves. And you literally take one sip of it, and it's like, whew, calming effect comes over you. It's pretty crazy. So I just wanted to see if you guys ever experienced that. Great stuff, by the way. It's supposed to be good for the immune system, too. But anyways, as far as the video title, I don't have any big breaking news today. But we just have a ton of positive news in general that's literally all coming together at once. And I think we're getting the perfect storm, right, for what's going to be a pretty awesome setup and, Caspa alt season when it's all said and done. So before we get into Caspa specific, I do want to go over a couple things because it kind of gives an idea of where we're at in the cycle, okay? We have recently, let me get the internet pulled up here. So we've recently had Ethereum ETFs outpace Bitcoin for 6 straight days in a rare flip, okay? And the significance of this is that phase 2 of the bull cycle, right? Phase 1 is Bitcoin dominance goes up, Bitcoin outpaces everything else in the market. It seems like we're only going to have a Bitcoin season, right? That's what it seems like every single cycle. People give up on altcoins, and that's when altcoins start to go up. Well, phase 2 is Ethereum starting to outpace Bitcoin. And I don't know what better metric that we can look at except for ETF flows, because that's some of the biggest players in the space, right, who buy ETF versions of Bitcoin and Ethereum because they don't want to do the whole, own your own crypto, self-custody type of thing. It's just easier for them. They're probably already in the stock market, and they'll just put money into the ETFs to get their feet wet, right, in the crypto space. So as far as this goes, you have Ethereum that has been putting in triple-digit millions. I think that's millions. It could be billions. No, it's millions because over the last 6 days it equals out to 2.39 billion. So you've got, it started on July 7th, 62 million, and then 726 million, 600 million, 400 million, 300 million, 500 million, 300 million, and so forth, another 230 million, and they're all positive inflows, right? Before that, Ethereum was not getting any positive inflows. They were getting outflows, right? They were in the red. And all of the money was going into Bitcoin. Well, if you look at Bitcoin's ETF flows over the last 7 days roughly, you've got multiple days in here, starting from the 18th, where you've got a negative 28 million. Then you came back with a 477 positive million. But then the last 3 days, I'm sorry, this only goes to the 23rd, so there's 2 days missing out of here. Negative 178, negative 107, and negative 93. On all of these days, Ethereum has been positive in triple-digit inflows, millions. And so it seems like, right, and you pair that with, if we come in here to the trading view with ETH BTC, right? You look down here, we've got a massive green candle, and even on this pullback, it is very little. It looks like ETH has probably bottomed on its Bitcoin pair, right? Because last cycle, this is where it bottomed. Of course, last cycle it double bottomed, so maybe we do come back down, but we're later in the cycle this time around. So I think that this is probably sufficient enough before we, make our parabolic moves. And then on top of that, if you look at just Ethereum, which is, if I can find it here, against the US dollar, we have clearly had a major breakout. If you see these, the last, this is a weekly candle, so 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. We're in our 5th week now. A little bit red, but we've had a pullback by Bitcoin as well, which is interesting because was it Galaxy Digital, I think it was, that sold a ton of Bitcoin, and they didn't specifically say that they put it into Ethereum, but they were asked on an interview, and they were basically expressing how bullish they are on Ethereum. And so it's, led to believe that they took that money out of Bitcoin and now they're putting it into Ethereum because Ethereum's going to do more gains than Bitcoin from here on out in the cycle, right? Bitcoin, who knows where it's going to top out at. I was always under the impression around 150, and that still could be the case, which is not very many, X's at all. In fact, it's less than 2X, and Ethereum should do more than that. So they're going to get more money, and these big players stick with the bigger caps, right? They have so much money put into it that even, a 2, 3, 4X is going to be a massive amount of money for them. So Ethereum is going to get them more of a return on their investment from this point in the cycle forward, right, till we end the cycle, than Bitcoin will. And so they took a huge chunk out of their Bitcoin holdings and we think have put it into Ethereum, okay? That's also a huge reason why things might be turning, right? Because when the big players decide to exit some of their Bitcoin positions and move it into Ethereum, that is typically a sign of the start of a potential altcoin season, right? And it doesn't have to be parabolic immediately. This could play on for a little while. I've always said Q3 could be pretty choppy, and so far we've kind of seen that, right? I think Q4 is going to be the corridor where we really start to see some movement. if you guys remember this as well, right? This is just a kind of a photo of how the cycle works. We've looked at this before, but if you look at phase 2 as Ethereum, right? And it looks like that's starting to happen on many different levels. Okay? And we did see all other altcoins move a little bit as well, right? Like I said, they're not moving big time yet, but it looks like their engines are starting, right? Just like at a racetrack, you start your engines, you rev them a little bit, you jump forward, test out your brakes, you move back to the starting line again. That could be a pullback, move back to the starting line, and then, off to the races once the the flag drops. So keep in mind that we could still have some choppiness, even though we are starting to see signs of, what could be the altcoin season. Okay, the parabolic run probably will not be until Q4. And I guess there's always the possibility that, if rate cuts don't happen this year, Jerome Powell gets taken out of office. His term is up, I believe, in March or April, maybe, of next year. Maybe that is where we get the blow-off top in early next year. We have to kind of play that by ear. But in 2017, we did get a blow-off top, a massive blow-off top, while rates were being hiked. So there is precedence to say that, we could potentially, even if macro conditions aren't perfect, we could still potentially see, a blow-off top in Q4, even if rate cuts haven't happened yet. Although the betting odds still say that it's going to happen in September. So if we do get a surprise rate cut, before that, then we could really see things take off. But I don't know how probable that is with the whole, I guess you could say, fight between Powell and Trump at this point in time. It almost seems like even if he did want to cut rates, he's just in spite of Donald Trump going to, keep things level for now. Who knows? Okay. So, let's see here. Thomas, welcome back. My friend Will, Crypto Otis, Paul, Buffalo Theory, Christopher Woodruff, KJ, Awesome Christopher, Barry Alt. I appreciate you guys hanging out and making your comment. By the way, get your comments in because we are going to answer some questions. Yeah, questions and comments towards the end of the stream. But before we do that, I want to jump into Caspa because that is what everybody's here for, right? Let's see. There's a lot of people asking me, has Caspa bottomed on its BTC pair, right? Because a lot of people in the influencer space are basically saying, well, this coin, Ethereum's now bottomed on its BTC pair. This altcoin is probably bottomed on its Bitcoin pair, and so forth. So a lot of people are asking me, has Caspa bottomed on its Bitcoin pair? And the answer to that is we don't know. And the reason for that is because, let me shrink this a little bit. Hold on a sec, guys. So we can get a little bit better picture here. The reason for that is because this is its first cycle and we don't have any history to compare it to. Now, if we look at it, this could quite easily be the bottom of the pair. But we don't know because this chart only goes back till 2023, and there wasn't a bull cycle, or this was its first bear market. This is its first bull market. And a lot of times when we're measuring, has a crypto bottomed against Bitcoin, right, to where they're now going to start outperforming Bitcoin, we're looking at where it bottomed the previous cycle or even 2 previous cycles before that, right? And we can get kind of an idea if it's, hit the same level that it's hit in previous cycles. Well, we don't have that, history on Caspa. We don't have that background information because we have never had a true bear cycle. We technically went through a bear market with Caspa, but it outperformed everything. And so this is literally the lowest it's ever been on its Bitcoin pair. So we'll have a better idea next cycle, wherever it bottoms out this cycle, we can compare it to where it potentially is going to bottom out next cycle, and we'll have a better idea, okay? Okay, let's see here. Eager Labs. We have them just announcing that they're partnering with Quex. And that is an oracle. And so Quex is going to be the oracle, kind of like Chainlink is for Ethereum, where it's going to verify everything, on the chain and make sure everything is up to date and verifiable and true, I guess you could say. And so it's EVM compatible, and it's going to be running on the top of Caspa's block DAG. I would imagine this isn't going to be the only oracle, although maybe it will be. I don't know. A lot of chains have more than one, and Chainlink might actually integrate at some point as well, because it's the big dog in the space. We'll see. Depends on how, what the adoption is like this cycle for Caspa. The other big thing here is this was released on the 21st, which was 4 days ago, but Egra is now live on testnet 10. So their smart contract, layer is now in test mode on testnet 10, and their smart contracts are already configured, and they're saying now we get to rest a little bit and just do some back testing. So everything's being tested now, right? Casplex has already been through their testing phase, and they're officially launching on August. Shoot, I can't remember the exact date. But it's about a month from now, roughly, 3.5 weeks, something like that. Don't quote me on the exact date because I forgot. But they have a launch date now, and they are officially launching next month. Whereas Egra Labs, right, is another layer 2, and it is launching simultaneously, right? It's going to launch a little bit later. It's in testnet right now, and I think they're going to go live in Q4 this year is what they said, which is a few months from now, a couple months, 2-3 months from now. And so they will, announce when they're ready. And then I haven't heard anything from Sparkle, which was supposed to be another layer 2 that was going to launch on top of Caspa. I don't know what they are actually doing. But nonetheless, they, I think, are still doing something. Who knows? But either way, Egra Labs and Casplex it's going to be huge, because once they launch, everything that we're hearing about, right, is going to be able to finally go live and take effect. And we're going to see it in real time. And it's going to bring in a bunch more adoption. It's going to bring in a bunch more users. It should bring in more users, right? We're going to get meme coins. We're going to get utility tokens. We're going to get DeFi stuff. We're going to get business-related stuff right behind the scenes, which I'm going to show you guys in a second. that's going to help create a massive amount of transactions on a daily basis, where all of these transactions, the fees are going to be paid to the miners. So it's going to keep the miners happy just on their little section alone. And then you've got everything else on top of that. So let's get into that real quick. I'm going to play a quick video before we get into questions here. And this is... I believe Rory O'Neill. In my last video, if you guys saw it, I didn't know who this was. It sounded like him, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to speculate. But many of people told me that was him based on the way he sounds. This was a Spaces on X that some of you guys may have seen, right? It's called Blockchain Banter. They do it every week, and Chris Hutchinson is a co-host, and he kind of leads the talking. Anybody, though, who joins can request to talk. And there was a lot of good people in there this week, as well as a lot of good conversation. And Caspa KII was one of them. And he had some really interesting things to say. Because you can speculate all you want, right? They're an energy company, and they want to use Caspa as their rails for payments. When, smart contracts go live, they've been working on their end of things behind the scenes, and apparently things are just about ready once, I don't know if they're launching on Casplex or Egra Labs. I don't know that it matters, because they're both going to launch this year. But once the preferred, company that they're going to launch on goes live, then they're, I think, pretty much ready on their end. They also claim that they're going to have they're creating their own wallet as well, an enterprise version of a wallet that has extra security so that when they transact between their energy companies and banks, then it's a little bit more secure than all the rest of the wallets out here. They have to have extra layers of security that meet certain standards for them and their partners. Now, if you guys didn't see my last video, I recommend go back and watch it. Basically, he was letting everybody know that the fee structure is going to be just fine, right? Once the mining rewards stop, right? Because there's an aggressive mining schedule. And I believe it's 2020. Don't quote me on this. I know like 92% is already mined. I believe it's like 2027, 2028, 2029. Somewhere in there, we're going to see basically, there's no more Caspa to mine at that point in time, right? Everything's going to be out in the market. And what the fear is that the miners are going to drop off because there isn't going to be enough Caspa to make them profitable and support their mining efforts anymore, right? And if the miners drop off, the security drops off, and the project kind of falls apart in a sense, right? Because everybody wants decentralized and secure. And so what KII Rory was telling us is that just their company alone is going to be creating so many transactions on a daily basis that the fee structure paying out to the miners is going to be well taken care of just by their company alone. And so we don't know exactly how many transactions they do a day, but he specified that they are already in in collaboration with 160 of the biggest energy companies in the world. And they all transact back and forth, as well as they all transact with certain banks, right? And all of those companies are going to be using Caspa as their rail for payment in the very near future. It's going to be behind the scenes. A lot of them might not even know they're using Caspa, which is even better because that is basically how the average public, likes things, right? They just want to make sure it works. They don't really care about anything else. And if you don't even know you're transacting on Caspa rails and you don't even know, then that is how advanced technology has become nowadays. Kind of just like Visa or anything. You tap your card and everything happens on the back end, and you just know that person gets paid. Your money came out, and that's all you care about, right? For the vast majority of people. So you can get Caspa into a scenario where it's being used and people don't even know they're using it. The possibilities are endless there, right? It's extremely fast and it's extremely cheap, right? And so you're going to have a ton of use cases for that. He also said that his companies that he works with are chomping at the bit for this type of technology to, transact and finalize their payments on. And so I want you guys to listen to this other piece real quick, and hopefully it's loud enough for you to hear. But take a listen. He is a little bit monotone and boring, so I apologize, but he has some excellent information. So take a listen.
Community, there is a lot of demand for that type of transactional volume sitting out there in the market. And just a little bit of updates from our side, we're finishing out Warp Core, which is the ISO 222 rails. And so as of, it was our birthday the other day actually, but KAI is 1 year old, but we now have and have been testing the rails for Warp Core and the ISO 222 transactions. We've run the whole suite of tests from Swift, so we now have to go through the whole regulatory and compliance piece with a number of institutions and with the Swift organization themselves. But we've successfully completed on mainnet a lot of those test transactions. So I just thought I'd like to share that with you. And then to complement that, we're developing at the moment our own enterprise grade wallet. Not to say that there's anything wrong with any of the existing Caspa wallets. They're all absolutely great and fantastic. Tandem is absolutely wonderful if you want a cold wallet experience, but for enterprise grade, which requires extra levels of security and audit capabilities and multi-sig and everything else, we're working on an enterprise grade wallet, which we'll probably be testing in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely insane. That's it. Like, that is really, again, this is what's so good. Like, you guys are really driving the adoption of Caspa as well, obviously on an industrial level. And like you said, with the ISO compliance that you're doing with Warp Core, I mean, for people in the audience that may not understand this is going to be able to speak between existing bank networks. Is that right?
Yeah, so the banking networks, you may have used the Swift network at some point in your life if you've ever tried to send money from one bank to another or one country to another, and you've had to wait 3 to 5 business days. So a new standard was introduced in March of this year called ISO 222, and that's the new communication standards for messaging between banks. And Caspa now has that ability to communicate directly with TradFi banks. So TradFi banks can actually take or conduct transactions via Caspa and then hold and treasury manage those digital assets themselves on their own networks. So effectively, if a bank wants to launch its own CBDC, and wants to do it outside the XRP or RippleNet, which is very centralized and has all of the difficulties that it's had. Caspa can offer that solution now, and it's very quick. So the minimum viable product is there, and we've done a lot of test transactions, and it's working pretty well.
This is really, really big news as well, because like you said, like with Caspa, obviously the fee market is something that we need to tackle head on. We've got a bit of time.
Okay, so recap. They, on their end, KII has, made, Caspa with the ISO 222, whatever that is. I always have a problem saying it. Which he said is the new code for, bank-to-bank transactions. And if there's now another option for those who don't want to use the centralized XRP and Ripple rails, right? And this is what, XRP hit their whole entire use case, basically. And what they market is bank-to-bank transactions is going to be the new, the new banking coin, right? Well, there's other projects that are able to be used faster and cheaper if wanted to be, and now one of those is Caspa. And so the possibilities are just opening up, right? Like, how can you be any more bullish on Caspa at this point? Because it's trying to corner, right, and actually doing it as we speak, every different corner of the market. And so people have the option to use Caspa and pay less in fees and get a transaction finalized much faster in a fully decentralized manner, right? Because if you're using XRP, we all know it's very centralized, and I don't know how fast it is actually, but I know Caspa's faster. And so the options out there for, the banks that they're dealing with and the 160 biggest energy companies in the world that they're dealing with are going to be using Caspa rails, not XRP rails. And that's the start, right? Hopefully that branches out, and hopefully that catches on to more people where they're like, wow, this is actually very, very fast, very easy to use, and you pay nothing in fees to use it. And it just keeps, branching out and spreading like wildfire to all these other industries and all these other banks and all these other, it doesn't have to be energy companies. It can be any company in the world, right? So let's give a round of applause to KII, because they are literally out there doing excellent work, as far as adoption goes. And the amount of transactions they're going to do are going to cover, in their words, it's going to cover the fee, the problem, right? Transactional fee problem for the miners alone. Once all the coins are mined and there is no more mineable Caspa to give to the miners. So absolutely huge news there. The fact that, we're potentially, could be, based on adoption, we'll see how that goes, but, a competitor to the XRP bank-to-bank rails, which is huge. So let me know what you guys think about that, and let me know how absolutely bullish you are on Caspa, because KII is literally out there, I mean, I don't even have words for it. They're just doing one hell of a job. And all of that is going to be behind the scenes, right? That's industry facing. We're not even going to see any of that. right? That's not going to be all the fun stuff that we're going to see on our end. That's just behind the scenes. And they're probably not the only one that's going to come on board, right? So I mean, the possibilities are endless. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous, I think. And part of the reason why I think Caspa is going to stick around long term, okay? So, let's jump over into the comments. See what we got here. Will says, let's go. Crypto Otis. Oh, your daddy, cat daddy. I don't even know what that means. Paul, good morning, Caspa community. Greetings from the Philippines. Welcome in, my friend. What time is it in the Philippines? Out of curiosity. I'm assuming it's completely opposite of what I am right now. Thomas, I enjoy your content and effort. Thank you. I appreciate it, Thomas. I appreciate you supporting the channel and coming in and watching these live streams every week, as well as, I'd imagine, watching all the other videos during the week. Much appreciated. Buffalo Theory, lion's mane is the best. Yeah, that's for the mind. I actually have some of that as well. But right now I'm taking the Rishi because it calms me down, and I kind of like that feeling where you just feel like you're chill and nothing else matters. But I do have lion's mane as well. I like it. Christopher, going to enjoy your live stream and then watch Happy Gilmore too. Is that... How old is that movie? Maybe I've been out of the now for movies, but is that new? Or is that like a number of years old and you're just going to go back and rewatch it? Because the first one was awesome. Very good movie. Will, blue mooning it up. Never tried shroom extract. Makes it sound like a drug. Supposed to be good for you, I think. Barry Alt, what's up? Will, this is interesting. It seems like a ton of people are saying extended cycle. Sounds like a lot. Sounds a lot like Bitcoin is going to 100K last cycle. Yeah. So I would be very careful when people try and tell you it's an extended cycle. The only way I could possibly see this cycle extending is potentially, this isn't a guarantee that I'm saying this, potentially if rates don't get cut this year. Maybe we go into Q1 of next year, right? But every single cycle, people say the same thing. Oh, this is going to be a Bitcoin-only cycle. Oh, this is going to be an extended cycle, guaranteed. And yeah, last cycle, everybody was calling for a guaranteed 100K. It was written in stone. And guess what? We stopped shy. So let's look at the number that all of the big influencers and the mainstream media start calling. I've heard 200K a lot lately, which means we're going to most likely fizzle out before 200K. You know, like I've said before, my guess is 150. I could see it going to like 170 something, maybe. If all of the conditions are right. But if you start hearing everybody and their mom calling for 200K Caspa, get the hell, 200K Caspa. Whoa, boy, wish we were in that time. 200K Bitcoin, get out before 200K. Because remember, last cycle was 100K written in stone, and we topped out at like 79,000. So, we got somewhat close. Jack is slurping on a glass of Sauvignon Blanc out of a box. The box wine. I like it. I like your style. Thomas, 92.32% mined. Yeah, roughly 92%. And there's going to be a supply crunch, I believe, at some point, especially if, everybody talks about the Bitcoin supply crunch because there's more demand than there is supply, right, out there. And, if Caspa can get some of that adoption, especially if the Bitcoin community, at least a percentage of them start to come on board, which looks like it may be starting. I wouldn't call it like actual adoption yet, but it looks like the conversation has started at least. And some, very vocal Bitcoin maxis have decided to at least do their research and look into Caspa. There could be a massive supply crunch at some point, because by the time that happens, it might be next cycle, and you might have like very little coins left to be mined. Whereas, if everybody's holding on to their coins, there's going to be a massive supply shock. So, we're just projecting out in the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I could see a scenario where that does happen. Jason, is it best to put all your profit into USDC, USDT, or both? Concerned about potential stablecoin collapse. I would recommend splitting it out between multiple stablecoins. Some in USDC, some in USDT, maybe some in Binance's stablecoin BUSD. And that way, if, God forbid, something did happen to one of them, your whole entire bag is not in one stablecoin. You still have money. But you got to remember, too, USDC is backed by basically the U.S. government at this point. And then you've got USDT, which has the FUD every single, and you could argue being backed by U.S. government's a good or a bad thing, but USDT, it has the FUD every single bear market where it loses its peg just a little bit and everyone freaks out. But every single cycle it stays around. I think it's too big to fail at this point, USDT. But again, you never know. What I'm going to do personally is diversify into, multiple different stable coins. And that way, and the bigger stable coins, not these little ones that you barely know about, because those could easily lose peg and disappear. But I would say the biggest three are USDC, USDT, and probably BUSD, which is the Binance stablecoin. I'll be using all three of those. But when it's all said and done, I don't think any of those three will actually go down. Yeah, stablecoin shouldn't collapse now that the U.S. is converting U.S. dollars into stablecoins. Yeah, they shouldn't collapse. Some of the smaller ones might, but those are risky. Those are, just as risky as the projects they're being built on top of. So be careful there. But I think you're pretty safe in USDT and USDC, and probably BUSD as well. Chase, I do USDT on Tron, cheaper fees. Can't wait for stable on Cas. Will be way cheaper. Yeah. Right now, Tron is the kind of default go-to stablecoin chain, and we're hoping that Caspa can take some of that business away. But either way, Tron's still like, I think it was $10 last time I tried to make a transaction on Tron. So it's not as cheap as you think it is. It's cheaper than something like Ethereum, but it's not terribly cheap compared to something like Caspa. So I think once, adoption continues and people, start to realize that Caspa is fully decentralized and transaction, settlement is, instantaneous, and the fees are a fraction of a cent, Would you rather transact for a fraction of a cent instantaneously, or would you rather transact for $10 somewhat instantaneously and have a centralized entity behind that project as well? And Justin Sun is the one behind Tron, and he's also had some shady stuff go on in previous cycles where a lot of people in the space don't trust him, but yet they still use his blockchain for stablecoins. So I think that there is a very plausible market out there for Caspa and stablecoins. Once we keep pushing the word out there that it exists. Because it's weird that a lot of people don't even know it exists yet. Any opinion on Nacho and KRC20 memes? Are they still alive and can do something crazy? Yes. I do believe they can still do something crazy. Did you see Nacho during that like 3 or 4 day pump where altcoins actually got a pretty decent push upwards? Starting with Ethereum? Nacho did like a 5x in like a 3-day span. And so when Caspa pumps, I believe that KRC20 is still going to pump. At least select ones, maybe not all of them. But the major ones, I think, will pump. Because Caspa, right, during that 4-day window, Caspa did I don't know what the percentage, I think it was like a 20% pump or something. It went from like 8 cents to 11.5. Maybe that's a little bit more than 20%. Either way, during that same time period, Nacho did a 5x. So that is the potential, right? Meme coins are more risky, but you do have the potential of them doing a lot more X's. The market cap is far lower. So I'm not advocating necessarily for throwing all your money in meme coins, although you can make a lot of money in them. So it's up to you what you guys want to do. The What Ups is back with the green tea. Appreciate you coming back, man. Okay, so next month on the 31st. Thank you, Will, for specifying that date for me. That's when Casplex smart contracts go live. I knew it was next month. I couldn't remember the exact date. The What Ups, do you see a potential buy the rumor, sell the news event surrounding smart contract implementation in August, or can you see a continued upward momentum? There is a very good chance that we do see a buy the rumor, sell the news. Almost every time you get news like this, you'll run up to that date in price and then you'll pull back. That doesn't mean you're going to pull back to the prices that we were at beforehand, right? You could still set a higher low, but you should definitely see a pullback, I would imagine, after smart contracts. Unless the whole entire market's just going absolutely crazy, and I don't think it's going to be doing that yet, then I would expect a pullback and a run-up. Probably, I would say the run-up might last most of August, or at least the second half of August leading up to the 31st, right, when everybody starts getting that FOMO of smart contracts. So, long-winded answer, in a nutshell, yes. There probably will be a sell the news event. Because that's just typically what happens with any sort of news like this. Will, Warp Core has huge potential, very interesting. Yes, huge potential. Along the lines of, everything that I just went over with KII as well. Because Warp Core is part of their setup. Barry Alt, KII is paving the way for us. Yes, they are. And they're doing a hell of a job. And like I said, all of that is industry facing, so we're not going to see any of that. But it's all going to be happening behind the scenes. And it's going to be like a massive engine running under the hood that we're not even aware of. We just know that the car moves, right? And it's going to be amazing. Especially if, what he says is true and the amount of transactions they're going to be doing on a daily basis with 160 massive energy companies as well as all the banks they transact with, throughout that process. In his words, should allow for, enough transaction fees from just them alone to keep the miners happy, which is insane, if that's actually true. Because that means everything else that's going to be going on and all the adoption elsewhere on the front-facing stuff that, we're seeing, meme coins, DeFi, all that good stuff, fun stuff, is just going to be topping on the cake, right? And if the miners are getting paid enough money, then, the hash rate will continue to go up, and, Caspa's price will continue to go up. Yeah, not many cryptos are rumored to be ISO 2022 compliant. XRP, XLM, HBAR, very bullish. Yeah, there's a few. I think even Cardano might be ISO approved or compliant. I'm not sure on that. But yeah, there's only a small bunch of them, and it's good to have that compliance so that if the banks, certain ones, do want an alternative to all these other centralized cryptos, right? XRP being the biggest one in that bunch. If they want something fully decentralized that's, instantaneous as far as settlement and way cheaper in fees than any of those guys, fraction of a cent, then they have that option to come over to Caspa to use that. So another props to KII for getting that all set up for Caspa as well on their end. Extremely bullish on Caspa, yes. Crypto Bill. Once smart contracts go live, where can we find these meme coins and utility coins? You should be able to log into Zealous Swap, being the first DEX, and find them all on there, as well as I would imagine Caspa.com will have a reference of everything that is available, right? And what the market caps are and all that kind of stuff. They've been doing a good job of keeping track of all of that. So that might be a website that you can go to kind of get an idea of what's out there. But it's just like any other coin, right, that launches. Like Solana launches a new meme coin. How do you find out about it? A lot of times you're finding out about it once it's too late from a bigger influencer who's just trying to pump their own bags. So if you want like ground floor stuff, it's going to be the same type of thing, right? You're going to have to do some deeper dive research in order to find these things at launch or before. Follow certain, companies on X and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably going to be the same thing. But you should be able to transact and buy anything that you want through the Zealous Swap DEX. Hoping that the hype for CAS smart contracts and Warp Core stables usage will push Caspa price high this year. Sorry, I kind of butchered that. Mila. It should, because smart contracts should give Tier 1 exchanges a little bit more interest in Caspa, I would imagine. And all of that combined, especially if we go into our parabolic alt season, right? A rising tide lifts all ships, But if you've got the more that's going on and the more resources that Caspa has, smart contracts and potential tier 1 listings on the horizon, should in theory give Caspa plenty of runway as far as price goes during that period of time. Okay, Happy Gilmore 2 is new. I'll have to look into that because I love the first one. Banana Republic, do you think Caspa is going to really low levels such as something like 0.44? Well, 0.44 is higher than we are now. I'm assuming you meant 4 cents instead of 44 cents. Because I think we'd all be very happy right now if Caspa was at 44 cents. There's a possibility for more downside. Reason being is because if we look at this chart again, there it is. Why? Okay, it's not allowing me to scroll down for some reason. Bitcoin dominance. It's not allowing me to slow down or to scroll down. Oh, this is the chart I want actually. Okay, so remember this this line down here. It seems like we only get a parabolic phase every single time altcoins collectively bottom against Bitcoin. Okay, and we still haven't hit that trend line down here. And so there's still a chance that we do. Something might happen in Q3 where it sends altcoins down to this. Because if you remember, we looked at ETH, the ETH BTC chart, and ETH has hit its trend line as far as where it usually bottoms, but collective altcoins have not. So ETH, when it gets a little bit of a pullback like it did here, the rest of the altcoin market might pull back even further, right? Until we hit that trend line. And then we can, skyrocket from there. So that's a possibility of still happening. That doesn't necessarily mean that Caspa has to go down to 4 cents, right? That just means that altcoins are underperforming still compared to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin can go up. Altcoins can also go up, just not as much. And this chart right here could start going down, right? So, we could... There's 100 different ways that this could happen. And it doesn't have to mean the USD value of Caspa needs to go down to 4 cents. But this is still a chart I'm looking at because sorry, that's the ETH BTC. It's still a chart I'm looking at because typically we need to go down to this level in order to get an altcoin season. But remember, in 2017, altcoins were at this level in November of 2017, and they still went parabolic November, December. So it's not like it seems like we're running out of time, but even 2017 has told us that altcoins can be down at this level in November of the post-halving year and still have an alt season while rates are being raised. And so if they could do that in 2017, then why can't the same thing happen this year, right? So there's a chance we still come down here. But like I said, it doesn't mean the USD value of certain altcoins have to go down to a crazy low level. At least that's what I'm looking at. How is everyone taking profits? Fib levels, RSI, market sentiment, BTC dominance. For me, it's literally going to be when I start seeing the top signals, right? The MR, what is it called? The MRVSV or whatever it's called. And then there's a couple more that I can't think of off the top of my head right now that are very good at predicting market tops. So I'm going to be looking at those as well as just the overall sentiment of the market. You can tell when you're in the heat of a bull market and everybody's telling you things are never going to go down, that's the time where you need to take profits. Another top signal is usually when Coinbase is the #1 app in the App Store, is a good signal as well, because that means your mom and your taxi driver and everybody who's usually not into crypto is downloading Coinbase because they want to buy crypto because they're getting the FOMO. They're seeing prices just go up. And that happened to me in my first cycle. So it like literally is a thing. And, the influencers I was listening to in my first cycle were telling me things will never go down. It's going to be a extended cycle, and we're just going to go up forever, basically. And newsflash, that didn't happen. I rode my bags all the way back down into the bear market and was not very happy. So you got to be careful. I'll let you guys know when I start selling and what percentages I'm selling so that you can at least know what I'm doing. That doesn't mean you should necessarily copy me, but it might give you kind of a basis of, hey, he's selling, so maybe I should think about it. At least selling a percentage, if things are getting too heated. So. Is there a stable coin that's cheaper than others to transact on? No, the stable coin, it's basically what blockchain you're actually transacting on. The stable coin stays at $1, and the fees are based on the blockchain that you're trading on. So I do a lot of Tron trading because that's kind of what everyone does, but if you trade on Solana as well, it's fairly cheap. So you could do USDT or USDC on the Solana chain, and you'll get very cheap fees. The difference is obviously Solana is pretty centralized, and it's proof of stake. But for now, we don't have the option on Caspa yet. It should be coming pretty soon. Yeah, Requius, Marequius, I don't know how to say your name, sorry. I'm leaning more towards a Bitcoin dominance and market sentiment to decide when to take profits. Yeah, you'll see Bitcoin dominance fall off a cliff. Like if you look at here's the Bitcoin dominance chart. I don't have my internet up. You can see, let me spread this out a little bit so it's a little easier to see. So in 2017, man, my nose itches. Sorry, guys. It's like it's being vibrated when I'm talking. It was technically 2018. You see Bitcoin dominance here kind of just literally fell off a cliff here. Like massively. Huge red candles consistently. Let's get that off the screen. And then you can see it very clearly, too, in 2021. I guess this was technically 2022, the end of 2021. That right there is what you're looking for. And, once the dominance gets to, once we get to a position like this, like halfway through this, you're going to know altcoins will be pumping. Dominance is clearly falling off a cliff, and you should probably start selling some stuff because if we look at where we're at now, you could argue that this might be the start of it, but we're not even close to where we're going to end up going, right? We may not fall all the way back down to 39%, or maybe we do, right? We might create a higher low with dominance, so we might go down into, the low 40s or something like that instead of the high 30s. But either way, I mean, just look at what that's going to look like, right? I mean, you're looking at, potentially, it's not going to happen in that sharp, although you can argue over here it did. But even that, look at how far of a drop that is, right? Even this little bit right here sent altcoins, some of them up 50%. So just imagine if you continue that down and down and down and down. And then maybe we do end up going a little further than this and retesting this, 39% dominance. Who knows? But somewhere in here, like in this range, we're going to know that we are in the middle of a free fall of Bitcoin dominance and that you should probably start taking some profits. The news is going to have you so bullish and so euphoric that it's going to seem like things are never going to go down again, and that we're going to skip a bear market next time around and we're just going to keep going up. And based on history, that is not the case. And I highly recommend not doing that. Because there will be people, there's already people, like someone commented earlier, telling you it's going to be an extended cycle and that Bitcoin's going to 200K. All of that is probably not going to happen. Yeah, Nacho did basically a 4x. It was more at its peak during that little pump. I think it was closer to a 5x, but either way, yeah, they did some amazing performance during that small window of about 3 or 4 days. I was impressed, actually, because there was a time, if you guys remember, that I thought about selling my Nacho because of, Shy leaving. But then you look at the team behind Nacho is very good, and they're very active, and so I decided not to. And probably a good idea I didn't. Somebody's asking Jason if he's going to swap stables directly from Tandem. That's going to be the easiest way to do it, but you're going to pay higher fees for doing it that way. It kind of just depends on, everybody's going to have their own, like I said, make sure you have a plan in place and follow that plan no matter what the sentiment is like. That's going to be the easiest route, especially if your Caspa or your crypto in general is already in Tandem. Just swapping it real quick for USDT or USDC is going to be by far the easiest way. It might get cheaper by the time we're actually selling because we're going to have more DEXs where they can actually, and smart contracts are going to be live. So we might actually be able to swap inside of Tandem, at least for Caspa, cheaper. But as of right now, it's quite daunting, the amount of fees they charge. And so for efficiency, that would be the easiest route to go. So you don't have to transfer it to exchanges and then back or, multiple places, hoping you don't lose it in the process by sending it to the wrong address. But it's kind of up to you how you guys want to do it. If you send it out to an exchange, swap it for stables, send it back, it's going to be cheaper. But you're risking sending it out and then sending it back, and you've got to do it in smaller amounts. I would recommend less than $10,000 at a time, so you don't red flag any of these exchanges who might freeze your account for fraudulent whatever. Who knows what they can do. I've seen it happen previous cycles in the past, So the risk of sending it out to exchanges and back, can get greater as well in multiple different aspects. So I'm going to see what the fees are like in Tandem during that time, and if they're, if I can stomach them and still be happy with, the amount of profit, then that's what I'm going to do because it's going to be the easiest. And then I'll send them out to an exchange and into my bank account at the time I want to actually use the money. So, is 13K Caspa enough? That is a hard question to answer because everybody's situation is different. Your situation is going to be different from probably everybody in this chat, and so forth and so forth and so forth. It also depends on what country you live in. Some countries are cheaper to live in. Some are more expensive. And it depends on what you're comfortable with as far as returns. So for some people, 13K is going to be enough. For some, it won't be enough. Interesting story, too, real quick. You just reminded me. I just bought, my mom actually texted me or called me yesterday and asked how she can buy Caspa. And she doesn't, I don't think, watch any of my videos, but she's seen, I think, like some of the thumbnails and stuff, and I don't know if she got curious or what. She buys some stocks here and there. And this was her very first crypto purchase. I just had her send me some money, and I took care of it for her because I don't know that she would have been able to handle it on her own. Maybe she would have, but I put it in her own cold storage Tandem wallet, and she now has a little over 10,000 Caspa to her name. And so I don't know what she's going to do with hers at the end, but she's very happy with 10,000. So if that's any reference for you. I would imagine if I were to take a guess, 13,000 Caspa at the end of the cycle, anywhere from 13K in US dollars to whatever 3 times that is, 30 or 40K, somewhere in there. At least if my, price predictions come true. Maybe we don't hit $1. Maybe we only hit 70 cents, 80 cents. Who knows? Maybe we hit more than $3, which is my top end. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell how close I am in those predictions. By 44 cents, I think he meant that CAS would not really pump in the peak of the bull run. I think we're going higher than 44 cents. You can quote me for saying that and write it in stone. Will, I've noticed a lot more chatter on X from BTC maxis talking about Caspa. Some good, some bad. I think it will ramp up more as time goes on. Yeah. So I think what's happening right now is it's the very beginning phases of some Bitcoin maxis actually realizing that there is something else out there that's similar to Bitcoin, right? It's not just any proof of work coin. It's not just any proof of stake coin, right? Which they consider shit coins. It is fundamentally hard money, just like Bitcoin is. And when they do any sort of research, they usually will slowly start to allocate into a little bit of Caspa, right? Very small amounts, but it seems like, well, let's put it this way. I would imagine that as these conversations continue, that it ends up, at least for a percentage of them, being a domino effect, right? Because if some of them are doing it, then others who have an open mind are going to be curious, and that they're going to end up doing it, right? Because some of these people that have started buying a little bit of Caspa might be, people that some other people look up to, and they're like, wait a second, if this guy sees something in it, then maybe I should, right? And it seems like anybody who's actually done any research has, been pretty impressed with it. The guys that are still talking haven't done any research, and I saw a screenshot today from VJ on X where it was literally somebody making fun of Caspa because let me see if I can find it real quick because it was interesting. I think he reposted it. Yeah, it's right here. So let me put the internet on real quick. This post right here cracked me up because clearly this person doesn't do any research at all. Even VJ, this is some next level research about Caspa versus BTC. This guy looks at the price action to compare against Bitcoin. Doesn't even look at the correct asset. Hasn't looked into any fundamentals about doesn't even know it's called Caspa, right? Because this guy said, look at me, I'm a clown. The market has decided who is captain. Responding to somebody, Caspa Maxi and Leon DJS World. And he sent the chart of Casper to Bitcoin, which has basically rug pulled and will probably never go up again because Casper is just a copy-paste POS blockchain, just like everything else out there basically, and will probably not garner any adoption, and anybody who's investing in it is probably not going to be very happy at the end of this cycle. But that being said, he doesn't even have the right asset. So you can clearly tell when people don't do their research and they look at a chart that's not even the right asset, which means they don't even know from square one what they're talking about, right? So I thought that was hilarious, personally. But to finish that point, I think there will be at least somewhat of a domino effect with a percentage of the Bitcoin community. And hopefully when it's all said and done, the community's kind of combined and it's just like, hey, we work together type of scenario because we're the only two hard money in the space. That would be best case scenario. Joe, our Caspa patience will soon pay off. $4 to $7. See, I'm not that gung-ho this cycle because the market cap would have to get pretty high in order for that to happen. But I do believe next cycle that's definitely a possibility. I could be proven wrong too. I have my own thoughts, but that doesn't mean that my thoughts are correct. Don't sell your Caspa for 10 years, only add more. That is one way to go about it. I've been in the space long enough now to know that things can happen, and so I'm selling a percentage of mine because I want to realize some of the profit, but I am keeping a bag that most people would think is pretty significant through the bear market and into next cycle as well. So because I do believe in it long term. Daddy chill. It's World War III. Help. What's going on? Did I miss something in the news while I'm streaming? Don't try to trade in and out. I do not. That's definitely true. Well, I guess based on your last question, I will be trading in and out, but I trade in and out on a 4-year period, not a daily or monthly chart. But I will be trading out basically 100% of my other holdings. Caspa should run during the bear again. We'll see. Its market cap's going to be bigger, and there's a chance it follows other altcoins this bear market. In fact, that would be my base case, is that it will. But a lot of... And the reason behind that is a lot of coins will outperform in their first cycle in the bear market because the market cap's so low and they're new and exciting. But usually in their second bear market, they kind of follow the rest of the market, and they don't outperform. Chainlink is a good example of that. In its first cycle, it murdered everything in the bear market, and everybody thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. I can remember it, and it's never going to stop. And it still did. It had a pretty decent bull cycle still. Some other coins did a little bit more than it because it did a lot of its gains in the bear market. But its second bear market, it did not do very well. It followed the rest of the market down into the 90-some% down, and then works its way back up slowly into the next bull. So we're going to see, right? We're definitely going to see, probably next year, if it can outperform again. Nate, I got a KS0 Pro up and mining on my own node at home. I hit 3 blocks in the last 3 days. That's pretty good, man. Congratulations. Keep stacking. I have a KS0 at home too. It's not the Pro. It's one of the original ones. I'm not on my own node, and I just let it run. I haven't even gone in to look at it. I thought about going in and solo mining with it, but I just haven't done it. But that's awesome that you hit 3 blocks in 3 days. That's solid. Kind of jealous, actually. And on that note, guys, I'm going to take off. It's been an hour and a half almost, so I appreciate everybody for joining. Make sure you pay your bar tabs before you take off. That includes hitting the like button and the subscribe button if you're not already. We will be giving away 10,000 Caspa at 10,000 subscribers. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you stay tuned with the community. Love every single one of you. Appreciate it. I will see you in the next video. Pack your damn bag.